Get inspired. Let's talk about where things live on this calculator. Anytime you're using a new piece of technology, one of the big limitations is not knowing where everything is. And so there's a pretty steep learning curve because look at all these buttons. You have to train your brain to know where things are. So part of it's just playing around with the calculator, but I'm going to try and give you some pointers that will help out a little bit. Think about the keyboard is broken up into three different sections. In this bottom third down here, you basically have, all your alphabet in alphabetical order, not QWERTY keyboard here. It's alphabetical order. But there's a couple of things that are down here that are nice to know. You've got the space bar. You've got comma. You'll use that a lot. You have the pi button, but if you click on the pi button, actually, you'll see that a couple other things live in the pi button home. There's pi, there's the imaginary number, there's infinity, there's the Euler number in theta and degrees and radians. And there's also over here another home. Click on that home. Well, first I'm going to hit escape, because escape is how you close down a little window, a little pop-up window like that. And under here, factorials is nice. And you got, degrees. It's like a second home, lives over here as well. But that's really, one way to get to factorials. Other things on here that, the flag button, don't really use that. Don't really use this guy down here. This is for like scientific notation. Again, don't typically use that. So I'm gonna hit escape to close out of that. So that's kind of the bottom third. Middle third is a lot like a normal calculator. You got all your digits in here. You got your multiplication sign, division, addition, subtraction. Enters how you basically, if you solve for something, you see what it equals. But there's another equal sign up here, and you use that equal sign when you're like solving for something and you need an equal sign inside of your equation. So you use that equal sign. But you can also solve for inequalities. And if you notice in the blue up here, there's inequality. So if you hit control equals a little pop-up window, and in this home, you can have like greater than or less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, a little such that button, which we're going to talk about in a future video, but that's a really cool button there. What are some other things? Hit escape again to close out of that. Under trig, you hit on the trig, and then you've got all your trig functions and the inverse trig functions. You've got, let's just hit escape to close out. You can, for exponents, you raise to here, or if you hit control, it's just basically the inverse of that, the nth root, or e to the x, or control e to the x gives you the natural log, x squared, and then control x squared is square root, 10 to the x, or log x. These parentheses come in very handy. You're going to use those a bunch of times. Now, over on this side, there's a couple other things that are really helpful. This little button here, I call it the magic button. It's not what the TI people call it, but I call it that. Because there's a lot of magic in here. You go inside here and you've got like all kinds of cool little functions that you can use. You have like the regular old square root, nth root, but you've got matrices in here, and you've got sigma notation, and you've got derivatives, and you've got second derivatives, and you've got nth derivatives, and integrals, and limits. So there's a lot of cool stuff, especially once you get into higher levels of math like calculus. You're going to be using this button quite a lot. Let's hit escape to close out of that. You've got your library button right there. See, it's a book. So that's the library button. So we're going to have a whole entire video just on the library button. Hit escape to close out of that. Control, it's blue. It's the only blue button, all right? You're going to use control a lot. What are some other things? If you hit var, that stands for variables. So if you click on variables, it will show you all the defined variables. And as of right now, F1 is the only defined variable. So I can click F1, and there's F1. And if I wanted to find what F1 of x is, I'm curious what the function is. What it was defined as, it was just F1 of x equals x. And actually, if you scroll over to your graph, see, it was defined in your graph as F1 of x equals x. So therefore, that's why it also got defined over here, because we're all in the same document. So even though these are separate pages or separate tabs, you find something in one tab is going to be defined in the other, which is why it's best to, when you want to start something new, you start a new document, you just start brand new, start from scratch, because anything that's defined will stay defined. Other things, if you want to delete things or clear a whole piece, so like if you come up here and let's say you grab this and you hit clear or control clear, that will just clear the whole thing out. And so that's kind of this middle group. And then this top group is a lot for shifting around for tabs. We've seen in other videos where you can do like control right and it will go to the right one tab, control left, go to the left one tab. If you want to toggle just back to Scratchpad, that's what this little button is for. That's the Scratchpad button. Escape is great because if you have windows open, you want to close them down, you hit escape to get rid of them. Tab comes in most helpful when you are looking at graphs and you want to see what the function of the graph is. You hit tab and that'll pop up. Here's your little touchpad. That's your home button. The dock button, I don't really open this one up too much. It's for like saving files and cutting and pasting, but there's other ways of doing that. You can, though, get to your settings down here. So you can get to your document settings under here. And if you want to change to radians, to degrees, or how many digits are being displayed and whatnot, you can do all that here. But once again, there's a little settings thing up here. So that's a little bit of a shortcut to get there is actually just getting your cursor and clicking on that. But the menu button, this actually is a really, really helpful button. And when you click on the menu button, you get a whole ton of stuff under here. All right. So like if you're taking algebra or just any math class and you want to use the solve feature, you got solve feature under here and factor, and you can find your zeros. You can expand if you have like, x plus 5 cubed and you want to write that out as a whole expression. And then under calculus, you've got a bunch of other possible things that you can do. Under probability, you've got factorials, permutations, combinations. Under statistics, so a lot of stuff lives under this menu button. So that's one you're going to use quite a bit. What's also interesting about the menu button is this is the one button where you get different options depending on what page you're on. So if I'm on my calculator option and I hit menu, these are all the different options that come up. All right. But if I'm over here in my graphing screen and I hit menu, different options come up. So this will give me possibilities for changing. Let's escape out of that. Changing, my window size over here, or if I want to trace or analyze the graph and find maxes and mins and zeros and whatnot. So you'll get different options there. Or if I'm in like a data entry window and I hit menu, I'm going to get different options for that. So you have different options for your menu depending on where you are. Now, if I go back to calculator, another thing I want to tell you is that if you have trouble finding where things live, another thing you can always do is like if you can't find the pi key, if you just write pi, hit enter, boom, it gives you pi. If you can't find theta, just type in theta. There it is. If you can't find where the solve lives, just type in solve, and there you can. That's another way of doing it. So you can actually type in using this keyboard. It's a nice little shortcut. Or if you want to do what F1 of X is, you can just do F1 parentheses of X, enter. Right. So there are workarounds for that. And that is pretty much it. So good luck with that. Time to go do some yoga. Bye.